Yay! So we are officially starting. So thank you so much for being here. When I asked you to come on the podcast, my initially it's because we had many conversations together, and every time that I speak with you, I'm so enlightened by the way you think and how you share your thoughts. Um, and you are one of the most highest consciousness that I've ever met, and I've told you that.
Wow.
Nothing less. Um, and we have no idea what we're gonna talk about today. So
This
there's
is
no preparation. Because we wanted, I think, both to really go with our intuition and to feel what was present. And I would like to share something that you said regarding to that. You said that depending on which day we would do this podcast, at which hour, the subject and the energy that would be between us would differ. So even if we would wanted to prepare something, depending on when we would do it, it would be different.
true. I feel that every single moment has its own magic. And if we were to do this, like you said, on a Monday versus a Tuesday versus a Friday, depending on what you've been going through during your day and myself and how we come together to kind of co-create in that moment in time and space will always be different. Never the same thing.
Yes. And so this is one of the reasons is because for me, you're really a high conscious being and you're also a man. Yes.
Apparently. I believe so. I believe so.
And mostly I had women on the podcast, and most of my clients are women. And I really want to invite men to tap into their magic as well. And for me, you absolutely tapped in your magic already. So that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you. So to like normalize the magic through men as well.
I think that's a noble pursuit and a good goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that, well, in general, and you tell me what you feel about this, men obviously tend to lean towards a masculine energy, generally speaking. There's, exceptions to every rule, and females to the feminine energy. And then there's a gradient across the board where we'll have different expressions. And this can also vary from day to day, what we're going through, our upbringing, our belief systems. There's so many variables that it's literally, in my opinion, impossible to pinpoint and even make sense of it logically. That's how I feel about the process.
Mm-hmm. And regarding like being magic and our superpowers, um, because I've asked you this question and I don't think you answered. So let me know if you want to answer that. But how would you describe your magic in the present moment?
My magic specifically?
Yes.
For me, magic represents many different things. I like to believe that the whole world that we live in is magical. Some of us know it, some of us know it, some of us don't, depending on what we've experienced and what we're going through in our lives. For me, I find that I connect to magic when I'm connected to myself in the present moment. So detached from expectations of the future and disconnected from the past. Really finding yourself in the present moment, in the presence, what I call present essence. And it's in that present moment where almost time dissolves and we connect to aspects and elements of self that bring in all types of creativity, different ideas, things that often surprise us. That's what I find happening for me quite often. I'm connected to myself in a present moment, and information enters my consciousness that I'm conscious enough to know is not mine. Sounds weird, so it must be magical.
That's good. And um, like when you talk about this external energy that you connect with, is it something that you've always done?
It's a good question. I would say from when I was very young, I was always a thinker, and I always had some degree of intuition, despite being a man. A lot of people say men aren't that intuitive, but that's a blanket statement. We like to make, black and white statements. It either is or it isn't. What I've learned is life is just shades of gray, to infinity and beyond, both positively and negatively. But I would say since I was always young, influenced by my parents who were both artists, I always had an artistic side and an intuitive side and felt that as a young child. As I got older, what I noticed was as becoming a teenager, when we inevitably care so much what other people think, it's a time in our life where it's very easy to lose the magic. We're in a school system,
Mm.
it's structured, there are rules, regulations, and constraints. And then, like I was saying, we care so much about what other people think. It's just a byproduct of us wanting to belong and matter and belong to the tribe that we disconnect, I feel, at least that was true for me, from this magical essence that we have.
Mm.
So sometimes the journey of connecting to self is losing self. And so for me, going through high school and the conventional academic system, I found that I disconnected a little bit from magic. And I found myself still being connected into, though, motivation and inspiration and wanting to achieve and do things, this very yang masculine energy, make things happen, put in the energy, put in the work. So that kind of replaced the magic in my life, that
Mm.
energy.
And so how did it came back? How did you transmute it back to the magic and to remove maybe the conditioning of like what I heard you say, and I've heard it a lot, of like wanted to fit into the tribe. And so if I'm magic, or as a man, if I show that I'm intuitive and I'm emotional, I might not be part of that tribe. So how were you able to reverse that?
Well, the first thing I'll say, at least for me, is I was never afraid to be my authentic self. I might have disconnected as a teenager from the magic, but I didn't consciously suppress the magic, so to speak. It was just a byproduct of the environment. But the first thing that came to me when you asked the question about how did I, quote unquote, rekindle the magic, how did it come back into my life? It came through lots of suffering and lots of challenge and lots of obstacles. It wasn't a conscious pursuit to bring this thing back in. As a matter of fact, I would say that in my later or early 20s, when I started my business and I was so maniacally focused on building something, it was when I encountered challenges and suffering that squeezed me, that you get to these points in your life where, you know, you start to connect to a deeper meaning. You're like, why is this happening to me? And am
Mm.
I really a victim here? What's going on? And when you connect to that energy, it either will break you or expand you. In my case, for me, I felt that it expanded me and broadened my horizon and my perspective. And I started to slowly reconnect to that. But it
Mm.
was it was through suffering that I found my magical essence again, so to speak.
Mm. I love that. I don't like that you had to suffer from it, but that it, like you said, that you got to be squeezed to like reconnect. And for people that don't know you, you were, well, you are still a trainer, and you had to have a gym. So you were in a very masculine environment. So how was it for you to, like, were you able to bring your magic and your intuition and your gifts into this field?
So I would say that the business is what got me to connect to my gifts, not just through the suffering, which was a big catalyst to kind of ignite and illuminate those things within me, but working with clients, working with people, being in their presence, hearing their problems, their challenges, all of that. It exudes a certain frequency and vibration, a certain
Mm.
energy that you feel. I'm someone who I would consider to be empathetic, compassionate. I feel people's feelings, and I take that seriously. And that if someone is expressing themselves in my presence, I know that they're being vulnerable, and that's one of the hardest things you can do. And to me, that's kind of almost in a sense like a high compliment that someone is willing to do that in my presence. They trust me enough to be able to be in that state. So what I observed is that when people would be in those vulnerable states in my presence, that I was kind of connecting to intuitive thoughts that I would share with people as
Mm.
guidance or things for them to consider. I never like to tell people what to do. Um, who am I to think that I know anything? I might invite people to consider things or share thoughts that seem relevant to me that might resonate with them. They can take it or leave it. I don't have an agenda or an outcome. So that was from people expressing themselves emotionally, number one. Number two, in the training realm, physical training, in terms of exercise selection, sets, reps, tempo, order, sequence of movements, how to achieve an objective. Yes, I had the education and the mechanics, but I really tapped into my intuition in terms of coaching. If something didn't feel right to me that day, even if I had a plan, I would shift gears and trust that inner voice. And I've worked with a lot of the top coaches in the world as my mentors. And when you speak to them privately, they tell you that their intuition plays a tremendous role in guiding how they do things with their clients.
I love it. And intuition is how would you define intuition?
That's a tough word to define. Let me see what comes to me. Well, to me, I believe that there's linear thinking and non-linear thinking. So I'll start there. Linear thinking is this rational, sequential way of looking at the world, which is ingrained in our conventional school system. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong, in my opinion. It is what it is. What I've experienced in my life is that there is something called non-linear thinking. It almost appears to be like a fragmented, discombobulated way of engaging with information and thoughts that we try to piece together kind of in our psyche and in our mind. And sometimes things don't make sense. And then you get another piece of information randomly and you start to connect the dots and you see a beautiful picture emerging. And that's what I would define as like non-linear thinking. So intuition is in the category of non-linear thinking for me. And the way that I experience intuition, it's when things come to me that I didn't summon. In other words, something just shows up. It appears. Everybody's had these moments where you're in the shower and an idea appears. Where did that idea come from? Who knows? But to me, that's intuition, when things just appear like that. I'll define it. There's probably some other ways to define it, but that's what's coming to me in the moment now for today.
I love that so much. And so you said earlier that you're very rational. So how do you like mix the rational with the intuition? Like if you have this, for example, the example you just gave with the shower. So if you have this idea, like, and you're like, oh, this is my intuition. How do you proceed this information being a rational person?
Great question. So what came to me was through trusting in the past, my rational linear mind, I was led down many corridors, so to speak, to pain and suffering, which caused me to reflect and ponder. So I started to trust my intuition more or play with it when I realized that my linear thinking and rational thinking wasn't always yielding what I wanted. So I actually started to trust it more and more as a result of quote unquote failing with my linear mind and rational thinking. So that's kind of how I came to connect to it. And now I'm at a point in my life where my rule is I follow my intuition. I probably do that 80 to 90% of the time. So the vast majority. And anytime I choose to entertain my logical and linear mind as my main compass,
Mm-hmm.
because it still has a place, both together, the linear and nonlinear minds. But if I use it as my main compass, very often I have pain and suffering in some way, shape, or form. So I just learn to trust my intuition, and that's how I live my life. And again, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong, but that's what resonates with me at this time in my life.
And what comes to me, and I never saw it that way, is I'm not a rational person at all. I'm like 100% intuitive. As soon as I realize I'm thinking, I stop and I go back to my heart, to the first answer that is there. Um, but what I've just seen is like rational comes from our conscious and our subconscious. And the role of our subconscious is to keep us alive no matter what. And so it will bring us to the same path that we are used to, because even if it's a place of suffering, for example, well, at least you know that at the end of this path, at the end of the day, you're alive. And so your subconscious will bring you back those limiting beliefs, those fears, to like put you back into that state where it will be harder to change a habit, for example, or to go into like trying something new, meet someone new. And so to me, the rational could be a little dangerous because, like, the engine for me of the rational is our subconscious and our conscious, which our goal is to keep us alive, but by staying in the same track that we are used to. Where for me, our intuition is like just connecting to rational was very, I feel a lot in my body was very like restrictive and like, like I speak a lot about a box, that we are stuck in this box, this structure of our identity. So for me, rational is really about that. And when I connect to my intuition, like it's like I can feel wings behind me and I feel myself opening up, and I'm getting out of the subconscious and the conscious and tapping into, you can call it the superconscious or the higher self or the source, where for me everything is possible because then you are in the present. The past doesn't affect you at all because you're just here right now, and trusting that. For me, intuition is the language of the soul, so that your soul knows what is best for you at that moment. So
Wow, a lot of beautiful words were spoken there. Can I share with you my version of what I heard?
yes.
What I heard you say is that intuition is a powerful feminine energy that does not have constraints. There's no box that can contain it. It can go anywhere and everywhere. It's light, it flows, it's boundless. Einstein said logic will take you from A to B, but imagination will take you anywhere.
Mm.
Imagination, intuition, these are powerful forces that are just limitless. They're infinite. Whereas the antithesis, the opposite, the other side of the coin, is that linear thinking, that rational mind that you said so eloquently and beautifully is rooted very much so in survival, and a survival in a variety of ways. You know,
Mm.
thank God that we have a linear and logical mind, because without it, we wouldn't get to express the other side of the coin, right? Because if we weren't safe and secure, then what kind of life do we have? We don't really have a life that's structured to be able to have a container to then express that other side. So survival is key. But I found, at least for myself, if I lean too much towards surviving versus thriving, very often you'll find pain, which isn't a bad thing. Because what I've discovered in my life is that wrapped in every painful moment, if you have the consciousness to perceive it, is great wisdom for those who are willing to look and learn lessons of the painful consequences of their own self-deception. There's very beautiful nuggets of knowledge and wisdom that are there.
And do you think you can access those nuggets of wisdom if you stay in that box, or do we need to get out of it and tap into our intuition to be able to see a bigger picture and then see the gifts that are behind what happened?
What I found for me is true is that when I can step out of the energy of the situation and perceive it from a vantage point where I'm not emotionally charged, this is where you feel light, you feel at peace, and you invite in new perspectives and ideas to see it from a different angle. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. But stepping outside of it. Very often when we're trapped in the moment, so to speak, or the memory, we're victims. Why did this happen to me? I wish this didn't happen to me. I wish it went this way. And once you play that game, it's an endless spiral of descent into
Mhm.
madness and chaos. And for most people, it destroys them in some way, shape, or form. But if you can step outside of it and have compassion for yourself, then you invite in all types of new perspectives.
I love that. And so, if we go back to the feminine and masculine, so I love that I've never seen it that way before, but like the feminine energy, and it's not related to being a woman, but like just we both have feminine and masculine. So, feminine would be more with intuition, and masculine would be more with survival, rational, taking action. And there's been a lot of talk about the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And for me, it's something that is quite recent because, like a year ago, I was tapping more in my masculine, into the survival, because I was in my nervous system was in a survival mode. And so by tapping into my feminine, connecting even more and more with my intuition, what I'm wondering right now is, as a woman that is more in my feminine, can I be 100% of the time in my intuition, or do I still need to have part of my rational mind?
What feels true for me is that we live in both worlds simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of slide with different percentages and ratios. So maybe in one moment it's 60%, 40%, and then 65, 30. Then, it's a very dynamic model. Nothing is
Mm-hmm.
static. And I feel that both sides have value. They're part of the same coin. You look at one side and you see the divine masculine, and then you turn it over and it's the divine feminine. It's the same coin, just a different perspective. So for me, both have a role, and it depends on the context and what you're trying to create and what you're trying to do in your life. Context is king, right? So it's like, who am I? Where am I at in my life? What am I doing and why? And where does my energy fit into that puzzle? And how do all the pieces come together? It's very complex.
And hearing you saying that, I receive an image. I have a good friend of mine. She's like in her I don't want to say 100%, but close to 100% of feminine. And she's a very airy person. So she has a lot of idea, project, but it's really here. And it's very hard for her to ground it in the physic and to like, and so this is what I saw. And so I think I'm answering my own question with that image. So yes, it is possible. Like a man could be 100% masculine and in his more in his mind and everything, but acknowledging both of them, as you said, to flow depending of the situation, could allow a better, like a life that has more harmony and more balance.
I mean, that feels very true for me. Just like we have seasons and things are cyclical in nature in this universe, when you can connect to the cyclical nature and harmonize both realities, that's when I feel you have an equilibrium of the energy. And it's for us to connect to self and see what's true for us in any moment. For example, if you mentioned your friend who's kind of out there and up there in the clouds. Nothing wrong with that. But if they're trying to achieve something that requires them to be grounded, there'll be a disconnect between where they're at energetically and what they're trying to do. And when you have a gap between those two realities, then you can start to build up a lot of frustration, anger, because things aren't going your way. And
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to make it work and you're wondering what's going on. And this is why I don't remember if it was Plato or Aristotle or Socrates, all these brilliant philosophers said, know thyself, because knowing who you are and your natural tendencies plays a big role in understanding how to navigate the waters of life, what to do and not do in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. And it brings me another. Um, I have a lot of friends that are single, female friends, and I was like that too. It's like I was, for a long time, I was waiting for the masculine to feel complete and be like, okay, when the masculine is going to be there, I'll be able to do this or that. So what I'm realizing while you say that is really for these people that connect to that, if you're a man or a woman, to find in yourself this balance of polarity and to be able to flow into both of them so you can feel complete on your own without an external partner.
Well, I think you said something extremely important there. Find in yourself. This journey within is so important. What I've witnessed and noticed for myself was the more I connected to myself and got to know myself, the good, the bad, the ugly, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I felt I started to develop more. I started to see more aspects and elements of myself, which allowed me to witness the ecosystem that apparently has a name called Miles Kroll, as these words say in the corner of the screen. And as I got to know myself more and more, this is where I started to expand and connect into what resonates with me. And as one does that, what I've noticed, you start to create a mission at that point. Because once you've connected so much to self, the deeper you go within, the deeper you expand on the outside. And what inevitably happens, and what I've noticed, is that a mission starts to emerge, something that you want to contribute greater than yourself and beyond yourself, which then channels a whole new level of energy
Mm.
because you're not living for survival anymore. You're living for contribution. And when you're in that state of contribution, real magic happens, it would seem. That's been my experience.
I love that so much. Yes, absolutely. I'm seeing like different aspect of my life and other people, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So if you are listening to that and you're in this state of, there's so many clients of mine that are like, I don't know what my mission is, or I don't know why I'm here, or you don't know what the next step is. Maybe a good first thing to look at is how are you with your feminine and your masculine, and to just acknowledge what is there, and how could you have better relationship with each of them.
Definitely connecting to your energy and seeing how you feel with that will teach a lot of lessons if you're willing to learn those lessons. What I've experienced is that all roads lead to Rome. You can define Rome however you want, but it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the singularity or single place, so to speak. And the cool thing is, what I've learned, and this could take a lot of pressure off a lot of people's shoulders who are trying to get stuff done, is that you can't do it wrong. What I mean by that is you might go down a path that's not your preference, but all roads lead to Rome. Some are longer, some are shorter, some are painful, some are less painful, some are not, but they all lead to that one place. That's what I found. So we have a lot of pressure on ourselves in our modern society to do things, right? We're really a yang culture, make things, create things, and that's fine. But when you define yourself by what you do or don't do, then you enter a trap. But the illusion of the trap is even if you find yourself there, the trap comes included with a key to let yourself out of the prison. If you can realize that it's there, because the prison also has the escape, it's the other side of the coin. And if you have the consciousness to perceive that reality, create a portal to exit that energy and find wisdom in the suffering and challenges and pain and obstacles and everything that you go through.
My mind again is, so these are the kind of concepts that we've shared together during many discussions, and why I wanted to have you here today. You have a way to express with words and metaphor that are so powerful.
Well, I'm glad you find what I'm saying somewhat useful. I'm speaking words and maybe they mean something to someone, maybe they don't, I don't know. But I'll definitely tell you this, it's fun to play and see what could be or what might be or consider something. That's the fun of it all.
Yeah. And just to add something to what you say, there's so many people that are, like you said, are like, oh, I'm worried I'm gonna make the wrong choice, so they don't move. But when you don't move, you also make the choice of not moving. So you're also making a choice. But this choice, where will it bring you? So if you are in that state, just be conscious of, by not choosing, you are also choosing. And when you are in that state, you are not, for me, if I look at the past when it happened, like, do you feel you are in your power? When you decide not to choose, are you in your power? If you're like, oh, I'm gonna let the universe, or oh well, I don't want to hurt this person, so I'm not gonna do anything. In all of these cases, are you in your power? And do you feel like you're going forward? As you said, like, every way goes to Rome, like to your mission, to wherever you need to go. And I believe that. But if you decide to put a chair and sit and wait, it might take you a little longer.
Will for sure take you longer, but the cool thing is, like, if let's play with this idea for a little bit because I think it's pretty cool. So let's say you have someone, they're super motivated and they take action and they go make it happen. Okay, that's one scenario. Let's say you have someone who has fears. Well, being a human being, we all have fears. Nobody's perfect. And you don't do anything. You numb yourself from reality, you freeze, and you just, like you said, sit there in a chair. What will inevitably happen, because I've had those moments too, where I've
Mhm.
frozen, I've hidden. You sit in that chair long enough, this pain starts to create itself within you. You start to feel this disconnection from self. And that will inevitably move you in some direction. So the cool thing, going back to all roads lead to Rome, is even if you don't do
Mm.
anything, we're doing something. And there seems to be a built-in mechanism that eventually, when it gets bad enough and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you will move in some way, shape, or form in some direction. And that goes back to you can't do it wrong. You might not do it in a way that aligns with your preferences, but you can't do it wrong.
Les castagnettes.
Mhm. Exactly.
Oh,
Got them.
wow. I think this is going to be so helpful for so many people. Because when for me, I realized that every choice is a good choice, it removes so much heaviness. I was like, okay, whatever I do is good. And for me, again, if I follow my intuition, like it always leads me to the right people, to the right places at the right time. And it happens sometimes that I ask him like, okay, where do I go? What do I do? And I don't have the answer. And then I'm like, okay, so it's not the time right now to make a decision. There's things moving around, so I'm going to wait. But I don't see myself sitting on a chair. I'm just exploring the area where I am and I'm enjoying this space. And this is something that I realize is so hard for so many people. When you're in that state, when you're on the verge of something new, but it's not there yet and you don't know what it is, and you're just like suspended, for a lot of people, it's very challenging because, as you mentioned earlier, like performance is a very present in our society. We need to move, we need to do. And so when you're in that state of like in between, like when you are at the Y of the roads, or a lot of people are like freaking out in that state instead of just what I told my clients. I'm like, you are at the top of the mountain. Can you enjoy the view, have a picnic, and just wait to see what's next, what's coming up for you, and allow those time of just resting, introspection, enjoying, playing.
It's very hard to trade your expectations for curiosity. We always are expecting things to go a certain way. It's part of our innate survival mechanisms.
Mm.
Oh, if I do this, then this thing will happen. We're always assigning probabilities to know what's going to happen or not happen so we know what to do or not do, right? That's our internal compass. We
Mhm.
all have that built in. For some people, it's more pronounced than others. To get into a curious state when you're trying to achieve something can often be very hard when you're not, quote unquote, making it happen. An analogy that I love, and I find that everything is just a fractal of everything, is to think of the birthing process when it comes to creating or achieving anything. First, there's kind of a passionate type of encounter that leads to some type of impregnation, which leads to an incubation of a child over 9 months. Well, if you think of that and you apply it to trying to birth an idea, it's really the same thing at the end of the day. Everything is a fractal of everything. You have a passionate idea that then gets birthed into some type of physical energy. But then there's this incubation process to bring something from the world of the unseen to seen. And 9 months can feel like 9 years. And this is where we get really freaked out because we have all these expectations and things aren't going the way we want. But there's a divine order to how things are created that we have to be at peace with if we don't want to suffer. If you want to suffer, suffer. There's nothing wrong with that. But to find more peace in suffering, it's to surrender. But easier said than done. All of this stuff sounds good on paper and it sounds really cool when we're talking now. Just surrender, just surrender. But we'll have moments of surrender and then we'll have moments of chaos. Moments of surrender, moments of chaos. It's always a dance of the two. So just know who's showing up to the ballroom to dance. Know that both people are going to be there. And when you accept that that's just the name of the game, welcome to planet Earth. Shadow and light, dualistic in nature, paradoxical in nature. This is the game. When you know the game you're playing, you don't put as much pressure on your shoulders and you might just suffer a little bit less, possibly.
Yes. I'm laughing again because this is again such a great metaphor with the ballroom. I love it. So you choose with who you want to dance.
for sure. And you'll dance with
Mhm.
both partners. Sometimes you'll dance with both at the same time. I find for
Mhm.
human beings, particularly, I speak for myself because I am me and I've had my life experiences. I haven't physically been in anybody's shoes, nor will I ever be. But we're going to experience everything. All possibilities that we can experience in our life, we will experience. And it's to realize that that's part of the game. So when you understand a little bit more about the game you're playing, and you know a little bit more about the rules, it starts to feel a lot lighter, right? Imagine you're playing a game and you didn't know how it worked. You'd be confused, frustrated, angry, suffering all the time. And there's beauty in that. And there's always gifts tied to everything. There's gifts on both sides of the rainbow. But if you're looking to live a life with less suffering, if that's your intention, you can explore that. But the path to non-suffering is through suffering. That's the hardest pill to swallow, to realize that the only way through it is through it. If you go around it, you have to pay the piper. That's what I've seen in my life. There are no shortcuts. It would
Mhm.
Whatever lessons you have to learn on your hero's journey and your adventure, those are the lessons you're going to learn. You can't escape destiny.
The only way to not suffer is to suffer. Mhm.
Yeah, say that 10 times fast and try to convince your ego that
Uh-huh.
it's true.
Yeah, and that's why we're in a society when there's so many external devices or like drinking, alcohol, drugs, games, social media. So to disconnect us from ourselves so we don't suffer, but then you suffer more because you're not tapping into and like yourself, and then you're just continuing to be in this like dancing with your shadow without knowing it's your shadow because it has a beautiful costume on top of it. But then there might be something that happened when you're like and then you choose to confront it, but it might be harder because you've been putting a costume on top of it for decades.
A lot of us like to hide, myself
Mm-hmm.
included. When we hide, it's the path of least resistance. I don't have to do anything. Numb myself with alcohol, video games, sex, whatever you want. Numbing mechanisms. And are we hiding from the fear of failure? Maybe yes, maybe no. Are we hiding from the fear of our innate magnificence and magic? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe all of the above. I find that it always boils back down to survival when we're not doing what part of us feels we should do and we
Mm,
disconnect. When we feel that, it's like, I want to do this. I genuinely do. And I'm not doing it. There's some magic there to uncover if you're willing to look.
absolutely. Hmm. And okay, I'm gonna go on another topic that I really wanted to discuss with you today.
Sure.
Because you work like as a trainer, like health is something that you are familiar with on a day-to-day basis with your clients. Um, I would love to know what are your thoughts um, linking like intuition and health, because we had like a little discussion on that a few days ago that I found very interesting, and I would love to put some light on that for people.
Well, I'm not sure what we were talking about the other day, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you what came to me now, which is that I actually believe that intuition supersedes and transcends health. Meaning, even if you were an unhealthy person, I believe you can connect into your intuition. In other words, intuition is not dependent on health. Having said that, could having a healthier vessel, so to speak, enhance your connection to intuition or magnify your intuitive abilities? Very possibly. So I think that taking care of your body, for me, that's important. I went into the field of health and fitness. It changed my life. People watching this right now might not know, but at one time I weighed close to 300 pounds. I used food as a way to mitigate stress and numb myself, which led to putting on all this weight. And then my journey was losing myself physically to find
Mhm.
myself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. And that was my journey. So I went from non-health to health. this paradoxical path. And as I connected to being a healthier version of me, I saw that life began to change. Why? Could it be that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world? What if that's true? What if when we nurture the vessel internally, externally, magic starts to happen? That's what I noticed for me. And anyone I worked with who transformed their body, always at the same time, even without thinking about it, transformed their mind and their spirit, because all three are intimately linked, body, mind, and spirit. So I always saw training as a conduit to change your identity and to connect to yourself, to magnify your abilities and tap into your power. I might not have articulated that to all the clients I was working with. Training
Mm,
was the mechanical side, but it was really a stepping stone and catalyst for transformation.
that is
So
so powerful. Go,
yeah,
go,
it
go.
really is powerful. It really is. And to answer your question, because I kind of skated around there,
Yeah.
health and intuition, I do believe that there is a connection. It's not necessarily 100% correlated, but there is a connection there. And health is wealth. So I've only seen good things happen as one nurtures the vessel.
And how would you say we could use our intuition to change our health? Like for example, if you have this diagnosis of cancer or whatever sickness, um, there's this way of doing by the medical right now. For me, that um, disconnect us from our intuition. We know, like for example, I will speak with my experience. After my accident, I had many surgeries, and after the 7 surgeries, I realized that the doctors didn't know what to do anymore, and so they suggested that it would re-break my leg, add more metals, and I was listening to them, and I just disconnected from the situation and looked at it, and it just was not aligned with me anymore. And my intuition told me this is enough. Like this is enough. And I super calmly, I was like, for me, that's it. And tomorrow I would like to have everything out. And they were like, there's gonna be a risk, you might not be blah 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 blah. And I was like, I understand. And for me, it's a big no. So I need to do that. Um and it took a lot of courage to listen to your intuition over a doctor, because like like we have this belief like they do have there's an experience, but I see more and more with clients of mine that are working with doctors, and we work with energy, and in one session we release the pain, or we create space for the body to harmonize itself, and they feel amazing and they feel healthy again when they were told that it was not possible. And so I would love to have your thoughts of that, relating to how we can use our intuition to improve our health, regarding of what other people are telling us.
It's a cool question. The first thing I'll say is I'm not a medical practitioner or doctor. Always seek medical advice if you're going through any challenging things in your life to get a particular opinion. I'll start off by saying that we have Eastern medicine and Western medicine. So already built into the practice of medicine globally, there are different philosophies. Everybody has their own journey in their medical trajectory if you're going through challenges. What some people might not know is that I had a tumor in my left ear 22 years ago. I had it was called a mastoidectomy. I had what's called a cholesteatoma. That's the name of the tumor and the growth that was in my ear. So I had a surgery to remove that. I'm missing one of the three hearing bones in my ears. I think it was like a 5.5 hour surgery. And, thank you, medical system, for the procedure, because without that, there would have been complications in my life. That was 22 years ago. And then about 10 years later, um, and I was aware of this possibility, the tumor came back. This time around, I was scheduled for surgery. I was told there was nothing I could do. And miraculously and thankfully, this tumor disappeared and I didn't need the surgery. Now, in the medical field, there's a term called spontaneous remission. This is what we describe miracles. Is it a miracle? Maybe, maybe not. What I know definitively and unequivocally is that there was a tumor in growth there, then there wasn't. And I'm happy. As you can see, I'm smiling. So it's very hard to navigate the waters of the medical system, particularly because, and this might shock you and shock some of the people listening to this, and don't quote me on the exact statistic. I got this from listening to a podcast with Tony Robbins talking about health, but I believe he said that 88% of second opinions in the medical field in terms of diagnoses are different than the first.
Mm.
To me, with my linear and logical and mathematical mind, I love data, I love statistics. I'm like, that's a pretty powerful statistic.
Mm.
Almost 9 out of 10 second opinions are different than the first. To me, and I'm no Albert Einstein, that would imply that we're all trying to figure things out. Some things are more easily able to be diagnosed because it's so clear cut, but it would appear that there's gray room in the healing process to explore. How we explore that and what we do and where our intuition fits into that puzzle piece is complex. But when I had my kind of tumor situation, when things grew back, um, my intuition was telling me to change up some of my eating habits. I wasn't really taking care of myself. And I focused a little bit more on slowing down and meditation. And for anybody that knows anything about the scientific side of meditation, when you meditate, which is essentially and fundamentally regulating your breathing and slowing down, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest, regenerate, heal system. And being in the health and fitness field, I've always been so intrigued by the stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system for healing, and also how, if you do the research, there's a great book called Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, which talks about epigenetics and demonstrates and shows how belief systems and thoughts can influence our genetic expression. So I look at this and say, could it be that through regulating our parasympathetic nervous system, slowing down and connecting to self, A, B, having certain belief systems and perspectives as it relates to the healing process and what's going on, could A and B really play an important role? And my answer is definitively yes. We've all heard that in the healing process, one of the defining elements is, does the patient want to heal? Do they have a will to get better? So that will, that internal belief system about it's possible, I can do it, this is all, peer-reviewed research. This is not me making anything up. So there are many different moving parts there, and intuition is definitely one of them. I've experienced that, as have you, as have many clients that I've worked with. There's more than meets the eye when it comes to healing, apparently.
Yes. Yes, and it feels good to hear that, because this is a deep belief of mine, is that, and I'm also grateful because I did had 7 surgeries, and I needed surgeries to place my bone back. And maybe this is a belief of my own that I need a doctor to replace my bones. Maybe this is possible, and I don't know. But I can say that I was very grateful for that. But then for me is at a certain point to always go back inside and ask yourself, does it feel right? Even if whatever who says you anything regarding to your health or your being, um, we are so conditioned to go external, like by reading book, by going to school, by asking, and we tend to forget to go inside. And for me, my intuition has access to this library where everything is there. I know everything. I have access to everything. And so by allowing yourself to reconnect and ask, like, is this aligned with me today? Do I want to do this? Do I want to take this? Do I want to take this operation? Do I want to take chemio? Do I want to take this IT depressor? And maybe the answer is yes. And then beautiful. Then you are in your power when you are taking that. But if the answer is no and you're doing it because you're scared, to me, this is where, when there's a problem, that people have lost the ability to ask themselves and to acknowledge their boundaries.
Yeah, there's the boundaries. Boundaries is a complex topic. We so easily sacrifice our boundaries to achieve things, please people. It's part of the journey of learning to discover self. Sacrificing your boundaries, if done chronically for prolonged periods of time, could potentially be like a deep road of suffering. But the cool thing about violating a boundary is you have the opportunity to have the experience of violating a boundary. That's the only way you can have that experience. And then you get to sit with the energy of having a boundary violated and then learn from it. And you can only learn about violating a boundary by violating a boundary.
Mhm.
Sounds crazy, but that's it. So there's always two sides of the coin. That's what I keep coming back to in my life. That part of the journey is doing things that we don't like and we don't want. And some people, it's part of their path to learn from those things, and for other people, it's to perpetuate cycles over time, over and over and over again. And maybe people wake up from the hypnotic stupor of the repeating pattern of self sabotage. Maybe they don't. It's Everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their own path.
Mm, yes. And is there
I don't remember
anything
if there was a
else?
question
Because
in
I,
there.
I
I kind
see
of got
my
lost in,
battery. Oh, I'm here again.
yeah.
Good. I was about to say I didn't charge my cell phone enough, and so now I have like 6% battery.
Oh, really?
Yes. Um. So, do you feel like did you had like other things you would like to share, and I get a cord to plug my phone?
You mean share solo while you're plugging your phone? Is that what you mean?
No, like, is there for you like do you feel complete with the conversation we had, or is there like another topic you would have like come to mind or intuitively you would have loved to talk about?
Well, the only thing that comes to mind, and we've talked about it throughout the conversation, the thread has kind of been there from start to finish, is I have a feeling that a lot of people who are watching this video are people who are in some way, shape, or form trying to achieve something, make something happen, and possibly might be experiencing stress or frustration. This was a big part of my journey. I had many obstacles, many challenges. The amount of times I set expectations and observed in real time those expectations not be fulfilled was unlimited, over and over and over again. And I got to have the pleasurable experience of eventually waking up to realize that not achieving things is part of achieving things. It's just we might not always get what we want, but sometimes we might just find we get what we need. And what we want and
Mhm.
need are different things. We have the wants, the desires of the ego, and then we have the needs of the spirit. And these two, it's a rough dance. It's a hard dance to kind of manage. And I've been down that road for a long time. So people right now who are going through challenges, um, I feel the need to communicate that this is part of the journey. This is part of the journey. The moment we can accept that it's part of the whole and see it as wholeness, not something outside of the system, then we can have a little bit more peace with our situation. And in that peaceful place, connect to our intuition and connect to nonlinear thinking and creativity and imagination. And from that place, be able to experience magic to bring things full circle with the magical word and quote unquote solve our problems, but at a different level of consciousness. Albert Einstein said, a problem cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. So how do we step
Mhm.
outside of that consciousness? Well, by accepting things as they are and surrendering, we step outside of it. We've shifted our consciousness. We have a different perspective. And in that different perspective, we transmute the energy of the situation and tap into, like I said, the creativity, the intuition, the imagination. And that is boundless, limitless, infinite. And that leads us to the solution if we're willing to go down that path.
I
Is
have
that good?
nothing to add. I have nothing to add to that.
I'll take a sip of water because I've been, that just spewed on for I don't know how many sentences.
Wow. I have nothing to add to that. It was just so, it wrapped up everything we just talked about.
Great. Cool. Makes me feel warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Oh, I feel we could speak for hours. Um,
Days, weeks, months, years. Sure.
yes. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the only podcast I will do with you, but for this one, uh, I want to thank you so much for your time and for your energy and for sharing all this knowledge. Like, I'm always in awe. Yeah,
Well,
at
thank
all.
you for having me. And the line I always like to say is these words come through me, but they're not mine. I know I learned a lot, and hopefully, people listening to this, something served them in some way, shape, or form and will help them on their path.
And so if people want to find you, I'm gonna add your Instagram. And if you want to take like just a moment, I know you just sold your gym, but you still have your business of consulting. So if people connect to your energy, would you like to just explain what you offer for service for maybe there's people listening that would love to work with you?
Sure. So I built the number one private fitness studio in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It started just myself, and I built it up to a team of 20 plus coaches, 30 staff. We were the go to place for private training. So, not a conventional big box membership gym. It was called Miles Fit. I'm Miles. So, my name was there. And it was a long and winding road of many ups and downs. Taught me a lot of things, impacted a lot of people. We had impact on, over 3,000 people locally, as well as people online during the pandemic. And that was a part of my journey. And I moved on from that and have focused the last year and a half on business and marketing consulting, helping small business owners, solo practitioners, small, medium sized companies grow and scale their business, helping them improve their systems, helping them improve their marketing, run their ads. I learned all this stuff in the trenches, doing it wrong to learn how to do it right and to grow my business from just myself to a big business. And I have the pleasure and privilege these days to be on the outside looking in, seeing myself and others and helping them on their journey pivot, challenging obstacles to find solutions to get the results that they want, more clients, more revenue, more freedom. So that's what I've been up to these days. If you type in, Miles Kroll on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, I mean, I'm everywhere, particularly because of my footprint with Miles Fit. It's very easy to find me. And yeah, so if anyone wants to reach out, you can just find me on the internet. I don't have anything to sell or to promote. I'm just living life and having a good time right now.
Good. But still, because I know sometimes, you listen to a podcast and you really connect with someone and you're like, I don't know what I could do with this person, but I really feel like I want to connect. And so for people that are owner, they own their business and love your energy, sometimes, having the intuition and the more masculine energy that you combine so well could be a great value for anyone, I think. So
Well, I appreciate you saying that. So I'll just give my email. I'll put it out there if anyone wants to reach out to me. So it's Miles, Miles dot Kroll, Krol, at milesfit.com, milesfit.com. So if anything in this video resonated with you and you own a business or you're trying to build a business and you're looking for guidance with your marketing or coaching in any capacity, feel free to reach out.
thank you so much again.
My pleasure.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. You too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.